Which Noles produced the best stats tonight against Boston College?
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. Thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles football with me. Today's show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. With zero sugar and a convenient portable size, it's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. Go to 5 Hour Energy today. Let's talk some stats. Florida State football hosting the Boston College Eagles tonight. This is a pivotal game for the Noles. I have my prediction show from Sunday up if you want to check that out. Prediction on score and all that stuff. But this is about individual stats and a few team metrics as well. I'm going to start on the offensive side of the ball, then move into the defense. First up, DJ Uiagalelei. This is a bit of an interesting stat to begin with because I really think, and again, I mentioned it in the podcast on Sunday, that his overall success is predicated by the offensive line and the running game being successful. He is a power pocket thrower. Play action, deep shots are what he can do very well. And he will throw to the perimeter, deep outs, comebacks, curls, things of that nature. Again, with his arm, it's not that big a deal. But it takes a little more time for some of these routes. It also takes a clean pocket. Florida State will get more of that if they run the ball much better than they did against Georgia Tech. As a sad and ridiculous reminder, 3.2 yards per carry against a solid Georgia Tech defense is not the way to go. You need to be able to run the football against any opponent, but Georgia Tech was awful last year. And while they did get players back and added a few pieces, they were not the 1985 Chicago Bears. Florida State's offensive line was inept. The running game didn't have answers after it was absolutely abundantly clear. There weren't good things coming from the plays in the first half. The second half didn't see the adjustments that were needed, so the coaching staff is culpable. So with the combination of that, first off, I'll get the rushing total in a little bit, but I do think they will improve quite a bit. Number one, they're going to hit more in practice. They're going to set things up with the offensive line a little bit. I think they'll, quote unquote, make it a little less complex, go a little bit more directly ahead, and they might hit a reverse or something like that too. That leads to the following stat line for DJ that I have. And again, this is just my opinion, but based on all the previews that I did with BC and their secondary, I did a couple of days ago with their corners. They've got one guy I think is pretty good coming back from last season, but I don't think they have the chemistry and the size in their secondary to really handle the Noles. And even if DJ throws up 50-50 balls, which he's got to do, because until otherwise proven, this receiver corps is not exactly getting a ton of separation. At least that's my assumption from what you can see on a TV copy. I don't think Florida State's going to struggle to throw the ball. I'm just worried about hitting those big ones. That's my one concern with this stat. So here it is. 21-29, 254 and 2 touchdowns, 12.1 yards per attempt. I think he's going to hit some shots. I'm betting on the receivers to step up. I'm betting on the tight ends to step up. And do not be surprised if a screenplay to Cam Davis, Rodell Witt, whatever it is. The Noles throw the ball well to the running backs since Mike has been there. They've got Atkins back at OC. There's really no excuse. They have more speed, more depth. They're at home. Their back is against the wall. If they do not execute well tonight, not just kind of, it is flat out cause for panic, in my opinion. You can't, I'm not talking about winning or losing. It's how you do it. The aesthetics of it, yes, the eye test is number one thing I'm going to look at. I know a lot of people hate that. Flat out, how comfy does it look? How easy does it look? Is it smooth? Those things go into it. If it is forced, like some of the stuff was last week, or you could tell DJ was completely uncomfortable by the middle of the second quarter when Georgia Tech started really breaking through, that is a sign that this could be a very long season. It's just part of it. You got to go through this to see, but BC's got very little depth from what I can tell up front. Secondary's got some questions. Linebacker, I don't know a ton about, but I think that with Florida State's experienced offensive line, unless they have somebody I don't know about, I don't think they're going to dominate FSU. I don't think anybody's going to come out 15 tackles, 4 tackles for loss or anything. So DJ should be throwing from a lot of 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6 situations instead of those ridiculous 2nd and longs. That's not how play action pocket passers like him do well. That's just not. You can't be in 2nd and longs because then the whole point of what he does the best is right out the window. So again, 21 of 29, 254 and 2 scores is what I got in. Now to those running backs and the overall run game. Like last week, I think DJ will be a part of the running game, but in a unique way. I think this will be more or less a theme for the season. Short yardage, maybe occasional scramble. He had a couple, including a first down run against Georgia Tech. 15, 20 yards rushing, something like that for DJ. But I think Tofili will have the biggest day, albeit there's a caveat. I think he will pop a run. He's due for one. He is extremely elusive. He's a graduate student. He's a guy that's been through the program. He's going to hit a big play, maybe a 40 or 50 yarder that'll boost his average. But overall, chemistry in 1 week is not going to be developed, at least to my liking, for Florida State. I think you're going to see a unit that quote unquote struggles at times, and anything that BC throws at them that they're not prepared for may not even adjust well at all during the game, but probably at the very least will not be immediately. So Norvell said this during his press conference before the game. He talked about, we got to take care of us, which is true, basic blocking, tackling and stuff. And he also rightfully mentioned that by doing that, you're also probably going to be a little less apt to know what's coming, and you just got to kind of adjust on the fly. In other words, there's no perfect way to go through practice last week. There's no BC film from this season. You got a new head coach. Yeah, they got some same guys on the staff that might have been holdovers or whatever, but a lot of new personnel, guys are a year older. It's going to be very difficult to see anything that you really think is going to come in waves. They're going to throw stuff at you. You had no idea. This is going to be a mental game for the up front guys and the running backs. They're going to throw fronts at you that you did not expect, guaranteed, because they know you can't prepare for it. If they're going to take a chance, first game of the year, haven't seen Phil, on the road at Doak Campbell, nobody's going to pick Boston College. And then finally, the element of surprise gives your players a little bit of juice. I mean, they get it. I'd be excited about that too. So Florida State's going to have to find a way to adjust. And overall, this is what I've got for the group as a running back whole. 38 carries, 173 yards, 4.5 yards per tote, and a couple of scores. Tofili with 15 carries, 95 yards, and a score. I've got him going for a 40-yarder. So that's, again, that might be a little jaded, but that's my prediction. Is it justifiable? Yeah, based on his history and Norvell's offense. He can scheme it up pretty good with these guys. They've got a really good offensive staff. But I just think the inconsistency is something I'm going to come back to. I'm going to have a post-game live show to talk about the game, no matter what the outcome is. My concern going into that is that I'm going to be very disappointed with the number of tackles for loss and or run stuffs, meaning play that like you get 1 yard, nothing, or a negative, that BC is going to come up with. That's probably my number one fear for this game, because if there's more than I anticipate, BC can be in the game to the very end and might even have the edge going to the fourth quarter. Florida State is not predicated like they were. It's completely opposite, actually, on offense. They were incredible big play third down team, which is atypical of almost anybody, but they had very unique offensive skill personnel last year. They don't have those guys this year. They have to stay on time, on track. First down runs are paramount. If they are struggling on first down runs, and I will track it, just like I did with the game against Georgia Tech, I think it was 1.2 yards or something like that in the third quarter, 1.6. It was really bad. And that's when you knew Florida State was in trouble. They just couldn't get the ball going upfield on first down. And then DJ was behind the chains. That's not his gig. That's not his gig, man. That's not his gig. So hopefully Florida State kind of figures that out, but that's my concern. Moving to receiver, I think it'll be a little bit mixed. And I do want to note that barring something unforeseen, I haven't heard anything, haven't really inquired. Hakeem missed the first game. If he does not play tonight, that is a 6'2", 6'3" guy that's 215 that runs like a deer that you do not have. That's rough. Really rough. But they still have other big guys that can go. And I'm, guy, and they're going to put Jalen in the slot, some screens. There's different ways to generate big passing plays. But as I mentioned a little bit ago, they must connect on 50-50 in contested passes, whatever way you want to phrase it. Whether it's to Malik, whether it's to Jaylen Brown, I don't care. I'm guessing Malik's going to get one of those, whether he beats a guy or not, like just straight up. But it will be a little difficult tonight if I'm right on this. I think they're going to either A, do what Georgia Tech did and play a lot of really basic zone at certain points of the game. And then when they don't, they're just going to come after the pocket like it's the last thing on earth they're going to do. There will be no in between. They won't play any just generic defense for any extended period of time. The basic cover 2 stuff, they'll run cover 3, they'll run cover 1 and adjust. They're going to make DJ read and think more than he wants. That's going to be the objective. They've had off season, to do it. That's what's going to happen. So with that, I got Benson with 5 catches for 88 yards and a score. I got Morlock. I think he'll be the safety valve this game. 4 catches for 52 yards. I also have Rodell scoring a touchdown in the red zone on a short pass. Again, Norvell and his staff do a very good job of scheming up running backs in the passing game. It could be any number of players. It could be Keziah. It could be Cam Davis. It could certainly be Warren Stofili. I don't know which player it will be, but I think Florida State's running backs will be a difficult matchup for the front 7 of the Boston College Eagles. Coming up next, we're going to talk a little O-line, and then we're going to go into the defense. That's next here on Locked On Seminoles. 5-hour energy shots give you the feeling that you need to get your day going and getting stuff done. With zero sugar, a convenient portable size, it is the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done, no matter what your tasks are for any one day. The 5-hour energy website also can give you a lot of different options: watermelon, grape, berry, and other flavors that you will love. Just try whichever ones you want or try them all. You can even put your options together and come up with a 12-pack or 24-pack. You choose the flavors and it will be delivered to your front door. 5-hour energy is the brand working people like yourself have trusted for over 20 years. Give yourself an alert, energizing feeling throughout a busy, hectic day. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, and get some 5-hour energy product, you will be happy that you did. You can use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is valid until the 30th of September on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. The offensive line for the Noles needs to figure this out too. I brought them up a little bit, but I want to bring up some specifics on tactics and how they impact the stats that I just gave. I know offensive linemen don't get yards and all that, catches, etc. But there is a very important part here. Right tackle last week, especially in that second quarter, was a sieve. Didn't matter which guy was in the game, Byers, Scott, whatever. And I wouldn't be shocked if they tried some different things this week, different combinations. Florida State's got to A, get more congruent, and B, try more guys at the same time. That's an impossible task. That's, like, in my opinion, how they have to do it, because you can practice and come up with a lineup. But if you remember back, Norvell even had myself convinced, maybe you as well, that he was ready to roll with his team. He was super giddy going into the first game, and then they just completely laid an egg. It's not often Norvell was fooled, but you could tell he was genuine when he came out, did a press conference, went out and did a long session with one of the media guys at a restaurant. He was ready to roll. He's not good at hiding his emotions. I mean, Mike leaves his emotions on his sleeve. So I was shocked. So can they really just trust what they saw in practice? And if somebody beats out another player this week, or they decide to roll with somebody, are they going to go with that guy if they struggle early because the stats are terrible? Like they're averaging 2.5 yards a carry through the first quarter. Would they just say, you know what, this is what we saw in practice, we're going with it? I will be shocked. I think there will be a short hook because they have a deep bench at O-line, at least in theory. And I think the most physical players will play the most. That includes pass protection. Let me define that. It is one thing to be really quick and to cut off the corner on a guy speed rushing. It is another to be that guy who also can jump set somebody, plant your fist into his chest, and just absolutely give him a lesson. Florida State didn't do that much last week against Georgia Tech. The pass protection was, quite honestly, very pedestrian at best. A little bit unstable, too much lunging, and their pass blocking grades and statistics were undesirable. I'll leave it at that. I think they are going to have to improve not only on that, but they got to set a tone with it again with that running game. If they don't come out, let's say by the end of the second drive and start smashing some face masks, the running stats I talked about, DJ'd everything else, will all go out the window. I will be dead wrong. I hope I'm not, because if that's the case, it's going to be a long evening, and the live show after the Boston College game may be one with a lot of screaming from you and from me. So let's hope that doesn't happen. Now, let's talk a little defensive stat and kind of get into it based on what we can kind of surmise. As a reminder, BC has added a couple quality receivers from the portal, and they had one guy last year that, despite being like a three-star kid out of high school, kind of blew up. They've got a good group. Florida State secondary is talented, though. They weren't tested a ton last week. Georgia Tech only threw 16 passes. They didn't have to pass that much. So maybe this week you'll see Castellanos, really talented quarterback for BC, take some shots. Maybe not. But my guess is Florida State's going to come up and try to force him to throw from the pocket. They'll play quote unquote wide. They're going to try to make him run in the middle of the field. If he's going to run, he's going to get hit. They want him to physically feel the, well, shall we say, the pain. Just leave it right where it's at, because they can't have him outside the pocket like last year. They can't have what happened last week against Georgia Tech either. Haynes King certainly torched Florida State on the edge. But I think Castellanos will run for more than 50 yards. Thinking he'll run for less, this is a guy who went for over 1,100 yards last year, is really ridiculous. As far as runs and sacks, that's the number. I think his rushing total will be closer to 70. He's going to pop one at some point, whether it's a quarterback sweep, quarterback draw, making 2 or 3 guys literally miss in one-on-one situations on one play. He is that gifted. He's going to pop one. How do you adjust after that happens, though? Even if it's a long touchdown, you have to forget about it and move on. Those are some of my concerns, because they didn't really do very well in those circumstances last year or last week, and they absolutely laid an egg on that final drive when Georgia Tech shoved it down their throat, then kicked the winning field goal. Florida State must do much better. To that final point, though, with the run game and all that, I don't think their running backs are great. They got a couple of decent guys. They shouldn't average more than 3.5, 4 yards a carry against Florida State's defense. I didn't even go into predicting, but if they average more than 4 yards, there's something wrong. That means Florida State didn't get anything fixed, really, this week in practice with the D-line. They were bad, really bad this past week. They didn't hit, and I mean flat out hit and tackle to the ground this week in practice that we just went through. We will know tonight. It'll show up on the game, and then I will talk about it until the next game, over and over. You can get mad at me if you want. That'll be the focal point of all of this. There's no substitute for tackling to the ground in practice. Got to do it. Period. So with that, I've got 3 sacks as a prediction. I've also got 1 interception. Got Castellanos with 225 yards passing. Those are pretty normal numbers. If you go back and watch again the podcast I did on Sunday talking about the preview and the final score prediction, they will match with my score. It's pretty standard stuff. I do think there's one other key factor, and I'm going to talk about that next as we wrap up the show. And if it's not something that we see from the outset, I think we're going to see some lineup changes. I hope what I'm about to say does not happen, and I'm going to go out on a limb and guess you all agree. That's next here on Locked On Seminoles. Hey, Locked On fans, this is Brian Smith with Locked On Seminoles, and I want to give you a moment to think about the brand new mobile game that I think you're going to love just as much as I do, Ultimate College Football Head Coach. In this amazing game, you get to step into the shoes of a head coach like Mike Norvell and lead your college football program to glory. Imagine being the guy leading the Noles. From recruiting players and hiring a coaching staff to seeing everything, overseeing everything at training camps, handling your scholarships, all the decisions that come along with being a head coach. That's what this gives you. And here's what you should really love about the game. You're responsible for calling offensive plays. Who doesn't like that? Ultimate College Football Head Coach is free. There are no ads, and it's 100% playable offline. And of course, we have a special offer for Locked On Seminoles fans. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all in caps, inside the game to receive a free boost to your program. To download the game, just visit ultimate-cfb.com or look it up on the App Store. Download it today. How physical do you think Florida State will be overall as a whole? Now break that down to defense. I'm sure many of you, like myself, went back and watched the film. I watched more than I want to watch it, to be honest, from game number 1 against Georgia Tech. That's why I put in this final thing. And if I'm right about this, it's why the game will be close, and Florida State's probably going to need a score in the last 7-8 minutes to win. That's why I have, again, my prediction's really close. I don't think they're going to cover. If I remember right, it's like 15 points or something. I would be shocked if Florida State covers that. I put down real big letters on my pad of paper. Rushing defense, -iffy. I don't think they're going to be that good. I hope I am wrong. I hope I am going to eat crow. I've got BC with 170 yards rushing, and that is sack-adjusted yardage. It'll probably be closer to 200. The reason? You got to prove it to me. Out of everything they did last week, the thing that just drove me nuts is how slow and lethargic Florida State's defensive front seven looked in attacking. When they got into contact with other players from Georgia Tech, they were the nail, not the hammer. They got turned sideways all the time, getting run off, didn't have enough fight, didn't have enough energy, didn't have enough want to. If I'm right and BC runs for even $160, that's a problem. But that's where I think Florida State is. I'm not going to lie to anybody. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'll tell it like it is. Florida State does not have a good defense until they are consistently physical. Again, I think they needed to hit this past week, but I'm not at practice. And again, defining hitting means tackle to the ground. If they didn't, it'll be a very slow burn to get to where they need to go. And this season's going to be rough. Yeah, I know there's going to be injuries if you do that, but I just don't see any other way to get there after how absolutely awful they were at tackling last week and penetrating into the backfield. They just couldn't do it very well. They had less than 5 plays where you're like, man, that looks like what it's supposed to be if you're a championship level defense, which last year they were. Prove me wrong. So again, I've got the over-under on rushing yards they give up is 170. That is terrible, but I'm not going to lie to anybody. Again, there will be a live show after the game tonight. I don't know the exact time because obviously we don't know what time the game will conclude. I will accumulate a few stats, get a few things ready, and then I will just go live from YouTube and go from there. I will post the show to the YouTube channel, like the main pod as well. And then, of course, I'll have it set up later on for all the different broadcasting stations, whether it's Apple, Spotify, etc. But until then, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen of each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles football with me. Now go check out my guy, Spencer McLaughlin at Locked On College Football, and as well as Kenton and that guy, that crazy Dono guy over there at Locked On ACC. A lot of stuff is wild right now in the ACC in particular. It is buck wild. So make sure you check it out. I will see you all later tonight after the game.